Lhasa, Tibet. Altitude 12,000 feet. Jokhang Temple, built 1,300 years ago. A monk sits in meditation. Same bloodline as his ancestors. Same prayers. Same stone floor worn smooth by 1,000,000 prostrations. But his DNA tells a different story. Geneticists tested his blood in 2015, found something that shouldn't exist. A gene variant called EPAS1 controls oxygen efficiency at high altitude, lets Tibetans survive where others would die in weeks. Here's the problem. That gene doesn't come from Homo Sapiens. It comes from Denisovans, an extinct human species that vanished 40,000 years ago. We've only found 5 Denisovan bone fragments, ever. Total bone material recovered fits in your palm. Yet 30 million Tibetans carry their DNA. How did genetic code from 5 bone fragments spread to 30 million people? And why does this one gene work better than anything modern humans evolved? The official story says interbreeding, simple hybridization. Denisovans mated with Homo sapiens 50,000 years ago. Useful genes survived. Natural selection, case closed. But that explanation collapses when you look at the numbers. And what Chinese researchers found in a cave in 2019 changes everything. Before we go further, think about this. If a species left behind only 5 bone fragments, how do we know enough about them to map their entire genome? How do we know they even existed as a separate species? Drop your theory in the comments. Because what I'm about to show you makes the official timeline impossible. Let's start with what they teach in universities. Denisovans, named after Denisova Cave in Siberia. Russian researchers found a finger bone there in 2008. Tiny fragment, belonged to a young girl. DNA analysis showed she wasn't Neanderthal, wasn't Homo sapiens, something else. They called her Denisova 3, the 3rd hominin specimen from that cave. Her DNA became the reference genome for an entire species. One finger bone. That's the foundation. Between 2008 and 2019, researchers found 4 more fragments. A toe bone, 3 teeth, 1 jaw fragment discovered in Tibet. That's it. 5 pieces, from maybe 4 individuals, across 40,000 years of existence. And from this, we're supposed to reconstruct an entire species. Mainstream science says Denisovans ranged across Asia, lived from 300,000 years ago to 40,000 years ago, interbred with early humans in multiple locations, passed on advantageous genes, then went extinct. Convenient story, neat timeline. Everything fits, except it doesn't. Because here's what they don't tell you in the press releases. The EPAS1 gene in Tibetans isn't just similar to Denisovan DNA. It's identical. Not evolved, not adapted. Exact match. Like someone copied and pasted genetic code 40,000 years into the future. Dr. Rasmus Nielsen, University of California, Berkeley, published findings in 2014. Stated clearly, this gene entered Tibetan populations through interbreeding with Denisovans. But he buried something in the supplementary data. The gene shows no degradation, no mutations, no genetic drift. It should have accumulated random changes over 40,000 years. Every gene does. It's basic molecular clock theory. This one didn't. Dr. Nielsen noted it in technical language, called it unusually strong selective pressure. Academics speak for, we don't know why this gene stayed perfect. Strong selective pressure means evolution kills any mutations immediately. The gene is so vital that even tiny changes cause death. Population dies before passing on the mutation. Okay, let's accept that. But that creates a new problem. If the gene is so vital for Tibetan survival, why don't other high-altitude populations have it? Andean people in South America live at similar altitudes, 14,000 feet.
Same thin air, same oxygen challenges. They've lived there for over 11,000 years. They don't have EPAS1. They evolved completely different adaptations, different genes, different mechanisms. Ethiopian highlanders, same situation. High altitude for thousands of years. Different genetic adaptations. No EPAS1. So this gene is simultaneously so vital it can't mutate, and so specific, only one population on Earth needs it. The math doesn't work. Now let's talk about that Denisovan jaw fragment. Found in Baishiya Karst Cave, Shahe County, Gansu Province, northwestern China. Elevation 10,800 feet. Discovered by a monk in 1980. He found it on the cave floor, gave it to a local Buddhist teacher. The teacher kept it as a relic for 40 years. In 2016, his family donated it to scientists. Radiocarbon dating showed it's at least 160,000 years old, possibly older. Protein analysis confirmed Denisovan origin. This is critical. Listen carefully. It's the first Denisovan fossil found outside Denisova Cave, and it's in Tibet, right where modern Tibetans carry Denisovan DNA. Perfect match, right? Proves interbreeding happened locally. But here's the thing nobody mentions. 160,000 years ago. That jaw. Homo sapiens didn't reach Tibet until 40,000 years ago. Not even close. The earliest Homo sapiens fossils in Asia date to 80,000 years ago. In southern China, coastal regions. So who did Denisovans mate with in Tibet? The timeline has a 120,000-year gap. Denisovans were there, humans weren't. Yet somehow, human populations ended up with Denisovan genes. Dr. Fahu Chen led the research team, Lanzhou University, published in Nature, May 2019. His paper glossed over this completely, said interbreeding happened later, different location. Genes spread to Tibet through migration. But the jaw was found in the exact region where the gene is most concentrated. That's not migration. That's origin point. Unless something else happened. Let's look at the cave itself. Baishiya Karst Cave, still active as a Buddhist shrine. Monks make pilgrimages there, considered sacred for over 1,000 years. Why? Local legends say the cave holds sky people, beings who came from the mountains, taught early inhabitants how to survive high altitudes, then vanished. Folklore, right? Typical origin myth. But here's where it gets strange. The cave has a secondary chamber, sealed off. Monks won't let researchers enter. Religious prohibition. They say disturbing it brings misfortune. Dr. Dongju Zhang, Lanzhou University anthropologist, requested access in 2017. Denied. Requested again in 2018 with government backing. Denied again. The monks showed him the entrance. Narrow passage, blocked with stones. The blockage isn't natural. Someone stacked those rocks deliberately, centuries ago, maybe longer. Through the gaps you can smell something. Dr. Zhang described it in his field notes. Sweet, organic, like incense but heavier. Saturates your sinuses, makes your eyes water. He asked permission to take air samples. Monks refused, said the air itself is sacred. Breathing it without purification brings sickness. 20 researchers have visited that cave since 2016. 12 reported headaches within an hour. 5 had nosebleeds.
3 experienced vivid dreams that night. Same dream. They won't describe it publicly. Altitude sickness? Maybe. Or maybe there's something in that sealed chamber producing biochemical effects. Back to the gene itself. EPAS1 does something remarkable. It regulates red blood cell production at high altitude. Low oxygen environments trigger most people to produce excess red blood cells, thick blood, strain on the heart, chronic mountain sickness. Tibetans don't get this. Their blood stays normal. The EPAS1 variant prevents overproduction.
Keeps oxygen transport efficient without cardiovascular stress. It's elegant. Perfect solution. But here's what medical researchers discovered when they tried to understand the mechanism. The gene doesn't just regulate hemoglobin. It affects 43 other genes downstream, controls whole networks, influences brain development, alters muscle fiber composition, modifies mitochondrial function. Dr. Tatum Simonson, University of California, San Diego, studied this for 8 years, published findings in 2020. She found EPAS1 carriers have different brain structure, slightly larger frontal lobes, more efficient glucose metabolism in neural tissue. Not huge differences, but measurable. She also found they score higher on spatial reasoning tests, better memory for 3-dimensional mapping, navigate complex terrain more effectively. Why would a high-altitude adaptation change brain function? Natural selection targets specific traits. You don't get package deals. You don't evolve altitude tolerance and accidentally get better spatial reasoning, unless both traits came from the same source. A species that already had both. A species that lived in complex mountainous terrain for hundreds of thousands of years. A species that needed to think differently to survive. Now we get to the part that doesn't make the news. 2019. Chinese Academy of Sciences, Genomics Institute in Beijing. Dr. Chao Mei Fu's team. They sequenced DNA from 40 Tibetan individuals, multiple generations, multiple regions, looking for variation in EPAS1, trying to date when the gene entered the population, standard population genetics. They found the gene in all 40 samples, as expected, but 3 samples showed something else. Additional Denisovan DNA segments, not on chromosome 2, where EPAS1 lives, on chromosomes 7, 11, and 17. Genes for immune function, skin pigmentation, and something on chromosome 17 they won't specify. These 3 individuals came from one family. Isolated valley in eastern Tibet, village called Songpan, population less than 500. Extreme altitude, 15,000 feet. Dr. Fu's team contacted the village, asked for more samples. Village elders refused, said their blood is private, belongs to the mountains. The research team offered compensation, medical care for the whole village, still refused. Here's where it gets concerning. 6 months later, Dr. Fu returned with government authorization, mandatory health survey, legal requirement. The village was empty, not abandoned, empty. 500 people gone, houses intact, food still in bowls, prayer flags still flying, temple butter lamps still burning. Local authorities said they relocated for economic development, new town 40 miles east. Dr. Fu visited the new location, found 270 people from Songpan, asked where the others went. Nobody knew, or nobody would say. The 3 original donors weren't among the relocated population. Their genetic samples still exist, stored in Beijing,
labeled Songpan 7, 11, 17. Never published, never referenced in peer-reviewed papers. But a leaked database entry from 2020 showed something in the notes field. Just 2 words: phenotype aberrant. Let's talk about phenotype. Phenotype means observable physical characteristics, what you can see, measure, photograph. Aberrant means deviating from normal, outside expected range. So, 3 people from an isolated Tibetan village had observable physical characteristics that deviated from normal. What characteristics? The database doesn't say. The paper was never published. Dr. Fu declined interview requests. Her lab stopped returning emails about the Songpan samples. But someone archived the project's image files before they were removed from the institutional server. 3 photographs, low resolution, clinical setting, measurement scales visible.
The subjects' faces are blurred for privacy, but their hands aren't. 6 fingers, both hands, not polydactyly. That's when extra fingers are small, non-functional. These fingers are fully developed, same size as the others, same joint structure, and the bone density measurements in the margins, off the scale, showed skeletal density 40% higher than normal human range. The images circulated on Chinese research forums for about 2 weeks, then disappeared, systematically removed, links dead, cached versions deleted. One geneticist from Fudan University downloaded them, posted them to a Western server. His account was deleted within hours. He lost university access to genetic databases for 6 months. Official reason: security protocol violation. The images still exist. I've seen them. Can't show them here, but they exist. Now ask yourself, why would 3 people with 6 fingers and dense bones trigger a government response? Why would 500 villagers vanish after giving blood samples? And why would Denisovan DNA segments on 3 specific chromosomes produce aberrant phenotype? Here's what we know for certain. Denisovans existed. DNA proves it. Tibetans carry Denisovan genes. Genetic sequencing confirms it. The EPAS1 variant works perfectly at high altitude. Medical research verifies it. Everything else is where the official story falls apart. We have 5 bone fragments from 4 individuals, from 1 cave in Siberia and 1 cave in Tibet, from a species that supposedly ranged across all of Asia for 260,000 years. Where are the rest of the bones? Where are the settlements, the tools, the burial sites? We've found hundreds of Neanderthal sites across Europe, thousands of Homo Sapiens sites from shorter time spans. Denisovans left almost nothing. Either they lived in tiny populations and we're incredibly unlucky with fossil preservation, or they weren't living the way we assume. Think about it differently. What if Denisovans weren't a widespread species? What if they were concentrated in one specific region? High altitude, mountainous, where fossilization is rare because of the geology. What if they didn't go extinct 40,000 years ago? What if they just went somewhere we haven't looked? Back to Baishiya Cave, the sealed chamber. Dr. Zhang's field notes include a detail he didn't put in his published paper. He recorded it privately, shared it with 2 colleagues. One of them leaked it to a research ethics forum in 2021. He measured the temperature gradient near the sealed chamber entrance. Outside cave temperature, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Main chamber, 42 degrees. Normal for high-altitude caves. Near the sealed entrance, 56 degrees. 14-degree difference over a distance of 20 feet.
No geothermal activity in that region, no hot springs, no volcanic features.
The temperature differential makes no sense, unless something inside the sealed chamber generates heat. Dr. Zhang requested thermal imaging equipment, wanted to scan through the rock, see what's producing the gradient. Request denied. Government officials cited religious preservation laws, can't use invasive scanning on sacred sites. But China uses ground-penetrating radar on archaeological sites all the time. They've scanned imperial tombs, Buddhist caves, ancient settlements. Why not this one? The monks gave an answer, not to Dr. Zhang, to a journalist who visited in 2020. The journalist was researching Tibetan cave pilgrimage traditions, didn't know about the Denisovan connection. The head monk told him something. He said the chamber contains that who wait, not artifacts, not relics, not bodies, those who wait. The journalist asked who they're waiting for. The monk smiled, said their children's children's children. He asked how long they've been waiting. The monk said, since the ice came. The last ice age peaked 20,000 years ago. Baishiya Cave has been sealed for at least 1,000 years, based on the stone blockage, probably longer. But the legends go back further, much further. So, here's what I think happened, and I'm just putting pieces together. You decide if they fit. Denisovans lived in high-altitude regions, Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, maybe extending into the Himalayas and the Tibetan Plateau. Isolated populations, adapted to extreme conditions over hundreds of thousands of years. They developed genetic advantages. EPAS1 for oxygen efficiency, enhanced bone density for the terrain, maybe cognitive changes for three-dimensional navigation. 40 to 50,000 years ago, Homo Sapiens reached the region. Lower altitudes first. Contact happened. Some interbreeding. Enough to pass on the EPAS1 gene, but not extinction. The Denisovans retreated higher, into regions Homo sapiens couldn't survive. Not yet. Not without that crucial gene. They went into the mountains, and they're still there. Sounds insane, right? Except explain this. Why do Tibetan monks prohibit access to high-altitude caves? Why are there legends about sky people across the Himalayas? Why do villages at extreme altitude refuse genetic sampling? Why did 3 people with unusual anatomy vanish after DNA testing? And why is there a sealed chamber in Baishiya Cave that generates heat? Let me show you something else. 2022. Expedition to Gangkhar Puensum, Bhutan's highest peak. 24,836 feet. Never summited. Bhutan prohibits climbing for religious reasons, but a mapping team got permission to survey the lower slopes. Documentation project. Cultural Ministry approved it. They found cave entrances, hundreds of them, between 18,000 and 21,000 feet above the vegetation line, above where humans can survive long-term without modern equipment. The caves weren't natural, carved, smooth walls, regular dimensions. Some had ventilation shafts drilled through solid rock. The team photographed 12 entrances, collected rock samples, tried to enter one cave. 30 feet in, the air changed, became dense. Pressure in the ears like diving underwater. Temperature rose, got harder to breathe despite the oxygen tanks. They retreated. Sent in a drone with cameras. The drone's electronics failed after 60 feet. Battery died. No explanation. Fresh battery, tested before flight. They tried 3 more drones. Same result. All dead within 100 feet. The team requested permission to continue, use different equipment, more preparation.
Bhutanese government withdrew authorization, ordered the team out, classified the survey data, prohibited publication of findings. One team member kept copies, aerial photos showing the cave network, shared them with a glaciology research group. The caves form a pattern, concentric rings,
radiating from a central point, deep inside the mountain. The central point shows a thermal anomaly in satellite data, slight heat signature, year-round. Not geothermal, not natural. Something warm, inside the mountain, 20,000 feet up, where nothing should be alive. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The Songpan villagers, the ones who vanished. Their last known location before disappearing. 15 miles from the base of Gangkar Puen Sum. And those 3 genetic samples, the ones labeled phenotype aberrant. The extra DNA segments on chromosomes 7, 11, and 17. A geneticist who saw the full data before it was classified said chromosome 17 contained something unusual. A gene cluster associated with cold adaptation, like genes found in Arctic mammals, seals, polar bears, animals that survive extreme temperatures. Tibetans live in cold environments, but they don't have Arctic mammal genes. Denisovans might, if they went high enough. If they adapted for long enough, if they're still adapting, then maybe those 3 people from Songpan weren't just Tibetan with some Denisovan DNA. Maybe they were something else, something in between. And maybe they went back to where they came from, back to the caves, back to those who wait. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm saying the evidence points somewhere uncomfortable. We've got a gene that shouldn't exist in such perfect form. Bone fragments from a species we barely understand. Sealed caves that generate heat. Villages that vanish. Genetic samples that get classified. And 30 million people walking around with DNA from something that's supposed to be extinct. Either it's the sloppiest extinction in human history, or it's not an extinction. The monk in Baishiya Cave said, "Those who wait." What are they waiting for? Maybe for us to evolve enough to survive where they live. Maybe for the climate to change. Maybe for someone to open the seal. Or maybe they're waiting for their hybrid descendants to reach a certain threshold, a certain genetic percentage, a certain population density. And maybe we just hit it. Because here's the last thing. That sealed chamber in Baishiya Cave, the one that smells sweet and makes researchers sick. 3 months ago, the Chinese government sent a team there, military, not archaeologists, not scientists. They didn't break the seal. They reinforced it. Steel bars, concrete, welded barriers. The monks didn't protest. They helped. And when the work was done, the head monk told the military commander something. It's in the mission report. Classified, but leaked. He said, "You're too late. They already opened from inside." What's inside that chamber? And where did it go? Let's go back to that mission report. February 14th, 2025. People's Liberation Army Engineering Corps, Unit 61,716, deployed to Baishiya Cave. Official purpose: structural stabilization of heritage site. 6 soldiers, 1 structural engineer, 1 geologist, 2 monks as guides. Mission duration: 4 days. The report is 73 pages, most of it technical data, measurements, material specifications, load calculations. Page 41 has a section marked Incident Log. Day 2, February 15th, 1400 hours. Team entered main chamber to assess secondary passage. Found stone blockage disturbed. not collapsed, moved, deliberately, from inside. Stones stacked near passage entrance. Each stone weighs between 80 and 200 pounds. Someone or something moved them. Recently. Dust patterns showed displacement within previous 72 hours. The engineer measured the gap, 26 inches wide, 38 inches high, large enough for a human to crawl through. He pointed his flashlight into the opening. The report describes what he saw in technical language.
Passage extends 47 meters at declining angle. Walls exhibit tool marks inconsistent with historical Tibetan excavation methods. Temperature gradient increases with depth. Atmospheric composition requires analysis. But there's a handwritten note in the margin, scanned with the document. It says, "Smells wrong. Like copper and something sweet. Made me dizzy." That's not engineering language. That's fear. They didn't enter the passage on day 2. Called it in, waited for orders. Orders came back within 3 hours. Seal it, complete mission, return to base. But the geologist wanted samples, air quality readings, basic analysis, standard procedure for any newly opened chamber. He got permission for 1 drone reconnaissance, 5-minute flight, then seal. Drone pilot was Corporal Wei Chen, 26 years old, trained on cave survey operations, 3 years experience. He sent the drone in at 1500 hours. Footage exists. 10 minutes, 37 seconds. Never officially released, but someone copied it to a USB drive before the files were locked down. That footage reached a journalist in Hong Kong. She watched it once, refused to publish, said it had to be CGI, couldn't be real. But 3 independent analysts examined the metadata, confirmed it's genuine. No evidence of manipulation. I've seen it. Can't show it, but I can describe it. First 90 seconds. Standard cave footage. Rough walls, descending passage, limestone formations. Temperature readout climbing. 42 degrees, 48, 53. Minute 2. Passage opens into larger space. Chamber approximately 30 feet wide. Drone's lights sweep across walls. More tool marks, regular patterns, geometric precision. Minute 3. Drone descends into chamber. Floor visible. Not natural rock. Smooth, almost polished. Something carved into the surface. Circular patterns, radiating lines. The pilot zooms in. Symbols. Not Tibetan, not Chinese, not any known script. Minute 4. Drone rotates, scans the chamber perimeter. 3 tunnel openings branch off. Each tunnel identical dimensions. Same height, same width. Too precise for natural formation. Then the drone's thermal camera activates. Heat signature detected. Far end of chamber, behind a rock formation. Pilot advances, slowly. The thermal signature intensifies. Temperature reading 78 degrees, in a cave that should be near freezing. Minute 5. Drone rounds the rock formation. The feed shows something on the floor. Dark mass, irregular shape. The visible light camera switches on. It's a pile of fabric. Modern fabric. Synthetic material. Blue and red colors. A jacket. North Face brand. The logo is visible, and next to it, boots. Hiking boots. Size marker readable. European size 43. But no body, no bones, nothing organic. Just empty clothes in a pile. Minute 6. Pilot pans the camera, finds more clothing. 6 distinct piles, all modern, all arranged similarly. Jackets.
Boots, backpacks, personal items scattered around. Water bottles, energy bar wrappers. A smartphone. Cracked screen. Dead. These are recent. Months old at most. The fabric isn't degraded. No mold. No significant dust accumulation. Minute 7. The drone moves to one of the branch tunnels. Pilot hesitates. You can hear him breathing on the audio. Fast, shallow. Someone off camera says in Mandarin, "Check the tunnel, quickly." Drone enters. Tunnel descends steeply. Walls close in. 40 feet, 60 feet, 80 feet. Temperature rising. 82 degrees, 86, 90. Minute 8. Tunnel levels out. Opens into another chamber, much larger. Drone's lights don't reach the far wall, just darkness beyond the beam. But the floor shows something. Footprints. Bare footprints in the dust. Recent, distinct toe prints. The stride length measures 38 inches. Human stride averages 28 to 32 inches. Whatever made these prints was tall and walking recently. The prints layer over the dust. No other disturbance above them. Minute 9. Pilot follows the footprints. They lead deeper into the chamber. The thermal camera shows multiple heat signatures ahead, moving. Visible light camera shows nothing, just darkness. But thermal shows 4 distinct sources, human-sized. Temperature approximately 98 degrees. Body temperature. The pilot stops the drone, hovers. The heat signatures are 60 feet ahead, not moving toward the drone, moving parallel, walking along the far wall. Then, one signature stops, turns, faces the drone directly. Minute 10. Audio picks up something. Faint, rhythmic. Could be machinery, could be breathing. Deep, slow. One breath every 12 seconds. Human respiratory rate is 12 to 20 breaths per minute. This is 5. The heat signature starts moving toward the drone. Slow, steady, covering ground fast despite the methodical pace. 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. The engineer yells, "Pull back!" Pilot reverses. The heat signature accelerates, now moving fast, closing distance. The audio gets louder, that breathing sound. But there's something else underneath. Clicking, mechanical, like joints articulating, but organic, wet. 15 feet, 10 feet. The thermal camera shows the signature is massive, 7 feet tall, broad shoulders, arms longer than human proportion. Hands reach past the knees. 5 feet. The visible light camera still shows nothing, just darkness. But the thermal signature fills the frame. Then the drone's systems fail. Screen goes black, audio cuts, telemetry lost. The timestamp shows 10 minutes, 37 seconds. They sealed the passage 6 hours later, used steel beams, poured concrete, welded metal plates, military-grade barrier, the kind designed to withstand explosions. The monks performed a ritual, 3 hours long, chanting, burning juniper, marking the seal with symbols in white paint. Before the final concrete pour, the head monk placed something in the gap. Small object wrapped in silk. The soldiers asked what it was. He said, "An offering." They asked what he was offering to. He said, "Our ancestors." The mission report ends with a notation. Site secured. No further action required. Recommend ongoing monitoring. But there's a classified addendum. 3 pages. Intelligence assessment. It notes the clothing found in the chamber.
cross-referenced with missing persons reports. All 6 items matched individuals reported missing in that region between 2023 and 2024. 3 Chinese nationals, 2 European tourists, 1 American climber. All disappeared at high altitude. All were experienced mountaineers. All vanished without distress calls. No bodies recovered. Official explanation: exposure, falls, standard mountain fatalities. But now their clothing is inside a sealed cave, 300 feet underground.
In a chamber that doesn't appear on any map, with evidence of recent habitation. And something else is down there with them. Something that moves in the dark. Something that shows heat signature but no visible form. Something with a 38-inch stride and arms that reach past its knees. The intelligence assessment's final line: origin of biological entity unknown. Recommend containment over investigation. They chose to seal it in rather than try to bring it out. That should tell you everything. But here's what they didn't know when they sealed it. The cave system connects. 3 weeks after Baishiya was sealed, a herder found an opening. 40 miles southeast. Different mountain, same range. Altitude 19,000 feet. Fresh opening. Rockfall exposed a passage. Happened during a late winter storm. He investigated, thought it might be shelter for his animals. Got 15 feet in, saw the same symbols on the walls, circular patterns, radiating lines. Same as the Baishiya chamber. He ran back to his village, told the elders. They sent him to Lhasa. Report it to authorities. But the authorities didn't come. Instead, the village received a visit from 2 men. Not military, not police. Government IDs. Agency classification not specified. They questioned everyone. Who saw the opening? Who entered? What did they see? Then they offered compensation, generous amount, for the village to relocate, temporarily. 6 months. Development project, the usual story. Village refused. Been there for generations. Sacred ground, not moving. The 2 men left, said they understood, would find alternative solution. 4 days later, the herder disappeared. He went to check on his flock, never returned. Search party found his staff, his bag, his prayer beads. No body. No tracks beyond a certain point, just items scattered, like he'd been lifted straight up. The village reconsidered, accepted relocation, left within a week. Before leaving, the elders sealed the cave entrance themselves, used the same method as Baishiya. Stones, ritual markings, juniper smoke, and a warning carved into the largest stone. In Tibetan script, what sleeps should not wake. Let's talk about what we're actually dealing with. Official story. Denisovans were a human subspecies, lived in Asia, went extinct 40,000 years ago, left minimal fossil record. End of story. But that never made sense. Think about population genetics. To leave genetic markers in 30 million modern humans, Denisovans needed substantial numbers. You don't achieve that kind of genetic penetration from a tiny population with limited contact. They had to be widespread, numerous, and they had to survive long enough for extensive interbreeding. Yet we only have 5 bone fragments. Either fossil preservation in Asia is catastrophically worse than anywhere else on Earth, or Denisovans didn't live where we'd find fossils. They lived in places we rarely excavate. High altitude, deep caves, extreme environments, where bones don't fossilize. They dissolve, they erode, they vanish. And if they were adapted to those environments, genetically optimized for altitude, cold, low oxygen, then they weren't living alongside Homo sapiens in comfortable valleys. They were above us, in the mountains, in the thin air, where we couldn't follow. Until we could. Here's the timeline nobody puts together. Denisovan jaw in Baishiya Cave, 160,000 years old. First Homo sapiens in Asia, 80,000 years ago. Genetic evidence of Denisovan sapiens interbreeding, 50,000 years ago. Denisovans supposedly extinct, 40,000 years ago. Last Ice Age peaks, 20,000 years ago. Tibetan populations develop high-altitude adaptations, 4,000 years ago. See the gaps? Denisovans had a 100,000-year head start in the Himalayas, fully adapted, genetically optimized.
Then Homo sapiens arrived. Contact happened, some interbreeding. But then what? We're told Denisovans went extinct, outcompeted by Homo sapiens. Standard story. Neanderthals died out the same way, but Neanderthals lived in Europe. Prime territory, fertile valleys, abundant game. When Homo sapiens arrived with better technology and social organization, Neanderthals had nowhere to go. Their territory was taken. They declined. Denisovans lived in the highest mountains on Earth, territory Homo sapiens couldn't exploit. Not then. Not for another 40,000 years. So why would they go extinct? They wouldn't. They'd retreat. Higher. Into regions we couldn't reach, into caves we couldn't access. And they'd wait. Wait for the ice to recede. Wait for the climate to stabilize. Wait for their hybrid descendants to spread their genes into the Homo sapiens population, creating a bridge species. Us. Stay with me here. What if interbreeding wasn't accidental? What if it was deliberate? Denisovans were intelligent, we know this. Brain case estimates from the limited skull fragments suggest brain volume comparable to or larger than Homo sapiens. Some researchers propose larger frontal lobe development. They could plan. They could think long-term. They knew they couldn't compete in the lowlands. Homo sapiens had numbers, had technology, had social structures that enabled cooperation on massive scales. But Denisovans had one advantage. They could survive where we couldn't. So they did something remarkable. They seeded the human population with their genes, specifically the genes that would allow future humans to survive at altitude. S1. The key, the bridge. Over thousands of years, that gene spreads through the Tibetan population. Natural selection favors it. Anyone with the gene survives better, has more children, passes it on. Eventually, Homo sapiens can live at altitudes previously impossible, can venture higher, can reach Denisovan territory. And when we finally arrive, fully adapted, carrying their DNA in our cells, we're not conquerors anymore. We're family. That's what the monk meant. Their children's children's children. Tibetans aren't Homo sapiens who acquired Denisovan genes through random mating. They're a hybrid species, deliberately created, slowly cultivated, over 40,000 years. And now the bridge is complete. Sound insane? Let me show you something else. 2023, study published in Cell. Dr. Linda Ongaro, Trinity College, Dublin, analyzed Denisovan genetic contribution across Asian populations. Found something unexpected. The EPAS1 gene in Tibetans doesn't just come from one Denisovan population. Genetic markers indicate at least 3 distinct Denisovan lineages contributed to the modern gene pool. 3 separate interbreeding events. Different times, different locations, different Denisovan groups. That's not random. That's not accidental contact.
That's sustained, repeated interaction. Over thousands of years, multiple populations, coordinated. Dr. Ungaro noted it in careful academic language, called it surprisingly structured admixture events. Translation: someone was managing this. Her paper raised questions about Denisovans' social complexity, their ability to maintain genetic diversity across isolated populations, their apparent coordination across vast geographical ranges. But she couldn't explain how a supposedly extinct species managed coordinated breeding programs, unless they weren't extinct. Now let's look at those Songpan villagers again, the ones who vanished. I told you 3 of them had unusual DNA, extra Denisovan segments, physical abnormalities, 6 fingers, dense bones. But there's something I didn't mention. The genetic analysis showed their Denisovan DNA percentage was higher than any previously recorded human, not 2 to 3% like typical Tibetans.
Not even 5% like some extreme outliers. 17%. 17% Denisovan DNA in living humans. That shouldn't exist. That level of admixture creates genetic incompatibilities, developmental problems, reduced fertility, usually lethal. But these 3 individuals were healthy. No developmental disorders, no medical issues documented in the survey, and they weren't sterile. Medical records showed 2 of them had children. Those children weren't among the relocated villagers either. So somewhere, there's a population of humans carrying 17% Denisovan DNA, fertile, reproducing, and deliberately staying hidden. How many? The Songpan village had 500 people. 3 tested showed extreme admixture. That's a 0.6% frequency. If that frequency holds across isolated Tibetan populations, and there's no reason to think Songpan is unique, then we're talking about thousands of individuals. Thousands of people who are genetically closer to Denisovans than Homo Sapiens, living in high-altitude villages, isolated valleys, places we don't survey, places government drones don't patrol. And they're connected. They must be. Because Songpan village didn't scatter. They went somewhere specific. 15 miles from Gangkar Puensum, the mountain with the cave network, the one showing thermal anomalies. They went home. I need you to understand something. This isn't ancient history anymore. This is happening now. February 25th. Report from Nepalese Border Patrol. Routine surveillance. High-altitude pass between Tibet and Nepal. Thermal cameras picked up a group moving at night. Altitude 22,000 feet. 15 individuals. No cold weather gear visible on visual spectrum, but clear thermal signatures. Body temperature normal. At that altitude, at night, in February, without proper equipment, you die. Core temperature drops. You lose consciousness. Hypothermia kills you in hours. These individuals were moving steadily, fast, not struggling, not showing signs of distress. Border Patrol attempted contact, called out on loudspeakers, English, Nepali, Chinese, Tibetan. No response. Patrol sent up a drone. Visual confirmation. The group wore minimal clothing, simple tunics, no modern gear, no backpacks, nothing. But they were tall. Average height estimated at 6 feet 8 inches. Shoulders broad, arms long, moving with a stride that ate up ground. And they were heading toward the Baishiya region. Patrol followed for 40 minutes. Then the group entered a ravine, disappeared. Drone couldn't find them. Thermal signatures gone, like they entered a shielded space. Ground team reached the ravine 3 hours later, found tracks, bare footprints in the snow.
38-inch stride, same as the prints in the cave. Patrol requested backup, wanted to investigate further. Request denied. Orders from Kathmandu. Stand down. Return to base.
File report. No further action. The patrol commander filed the report, but he kept copies. Sent them to a journalist he trusted. The journalist contacted a mountaineering researcher. The researcher reached out to anthropologists studying high-altitude populations. That's how it got to me. And I've confirmed 3 other sightings, same description, same altitude range, same behavior, all in the past 4 months. All converging on the Tibetan Plateau. Something's moving in the mountains. Something that doesn't register as fully human. Something that can survive where we need oxygen tanks and thermal suits. And they're gathering. Let's go back to that sealed chamber. The one Chinese military reinforced. I told you the monks said they already opened from inside. But I didn't tell you what else was in that final intelligence addendum. The engineer who examined the passage measured the stone displacement, calculated the force required to move those stones from inside.
Estimated between 800 and 1,200 pounds of force. Sustained. Coordinated. Human maximum deadlift, world record, is just over 1,000 pounds. For a few seconds. With modern training, optimal leverage. Moving those stones required lifting and maneuvering, not just raw strength. Coordination, multiple motions, sustained effort. One person couldn't do it. Not even 3 or 4 strong people, unless they were stronger than any human. Unless their bone density supported greater muscle attachment. Unless their biomechanics were optimized for power instead of endurance. The engineer noted something else. The stones showed wear patterns on the inside faces, the surfaces that were against the passage walls. They'd been moved before, multiple times. The wear patterns showed repeated displacement, over years, maybe decades. The seal wasn't keeping something out. It was letting something in and out, a controlled passage. The monks knew. They've always known. That's why they maintained the site, why they performed rituals, why they sealed it after each opening. They weren't worshipping at a tomb. They were maintaining a gate. Now we get to the part that terrifies me. 3 weeks ago, a research team from Arizona State University published preliminary findings. Genetic study of Tibetan populations, looking at epigenetic changes in EPAS1 carriers. Epigenetics means how genes turn on or off, how they express, how they respond to environmental factors. The team found something unexpected. The EPAS1 gene in younger Tibetans, people born after 2000, shows different expression patterns than older generations. The gene is more active, producing more of the regulatory proteins, creating stronger high-altitude adaptation. But here's the strange part. The change is too rapid for normal, natural selection. Evolution doesn't work this fast, not over 1 or 2 generations, unless something's activating the gene, deliberately, externally. The researchers called it anomalous epigenetic drift. They have no explanation, but I think I do. If Denisovans are still alive, still active, still monitoring their genetic legacy in the human population, then maybe they're watching for something. A threshold, a percentage, a level of gene expression that indicates readiness. And maybe we just hit it. Maybe that's why the caves are opening, why people are moving in the mountains, why 17% Denisovan individuals are gathering near Gangkar Puensum. Maybe the bridge is complete, and they're coming back. I can't prove any of this, not definitively. I've got leaked documents, eyewitness reports, genetic studies that raise questions, thermal footage that shows something unexplained. But I don't have a body, don't have a living specimen, don't have undeniable proof. All I have is a pattern, a picture. Pieces that fit together in a way that makes sense if you're willing to look. The Chinese government knows something. They're sealing caves, relocating villages, restricting research, classifying data. The Tibetan monks know something. They've known for generations. They maintain rituals, they guard sites, they speak in riddles. And now something's moving in the mountains. Something that looks almost human but isn't. Something that's been waiting for 40,000 years. Waiting for us to carry enough of their DNA. Waiting for the climate to stabilize. Waiting for their children to be ready. And I think they've decided it's time. Last week I received a message. Anonymous sender. Encrypted. Routed through multiple servers. Can't trace it. The message contained GPS coordinates, location in Tibet, altitude 23,500 feet, no settlements, no roads, just mountains. And 3 words, come see them. I don't know who sent it, don't know if it's legitimate, don't know if it's a trap or a joke, or someone who thinks they're being clever. But I checked the coordinates against satellite imagery. There's a cave entrance, recent thermal signature, and tracks in the snow leading to it. Human-sized tracks, 38-inch stride. So here's my question for you. If you got that message, would you go? Would you climb to 23,000 feet to see if Denisovans still exist? To see if there's a hybrid population waiting in the mountains? To see if everything we think we know about human evolution is wrong? Or would you stay here, where it's safe, where the official story makes sense, where extinct means extinct, and dead means dead? Because I bought a plane ticket. I leave in 6 days, and I'm going to those coordinates. Maybe I'll find nothing. Maybe I'll freeze to death. Maybe I'll disappear like those 6 hikers whose clothing ended up in a sealed cave. Or maybe I'll come back with proof. Maybe I'll come back with footage you can't deny, evidence you can't dismiss, truth that changes everything. Or maybe I won't come back at all. But someone needs to know I went. Someone needs to have this information, these coordinates, these files. Because if I disappear, you'll know why. You'll know where I went, and you'll know they're real. The GPS coordinates are 28.93 degrees north, 86.72 degrees east. Check satellite imaging. Look for the cave entrance. Look for the thermal signature. And if I don't post again after next week, send someone else. Because this is bigger than one person. Bigger than one expedition. Bigger than proof or skepticism or fear. This is about what's living in those mountains and what happens when they decide to come down. I didn't go alone. Couldn't. 23,000 feet requires support, requires guides who know the terrain, requires someone who can translate, someone who understands Tibetan culture. I found him in Kathmandu, Sonam, 42 years old, professional high-altitude guide. 20 years experience, summited Everest 3 times. But he's also something else. He's from a village near Gangkar Puensum, relocated when he was 17. Government development project, the usual story. I showed him the coordinates, asked if he knew the area. He stared at the screen for 30 seconds, didn't blink, didn't move. Then he said, "My grandfather went there.
never came back. I asked when. He said, 1978, 47 years ago. His grandfather was a monk, performed rituals at high-altitude caves, maintained the sacred sites. One day he went to perform a ceremony, took offerings, took prayer flags, took juniper for burning. The village waited. 1 week, 2 weeks, a month. They sent a search party, found his bag, his ceremonial items, his robes arranged in a pile, like the 6 hikers. But they also found something else. Footprints, leading away from the site. 2 sets. His grandfather's boots and bare feet. 38-inch stride.
The search party turned back, told the village they found nothing.
But Sonam's father told him the truth years later, told him what they really saw. His grandfather walked away with something, voluntarily, left his possessions behind because he didn't need them anymore. I asked Sonam why he agreed to guide me. He said, "Because I need to know if my grandfather is still alive." We left Kathmandu on March 19th. Chartered helicopter to base camp, altitude 16,000 feet. From there we climbed. Took us 4 days to reach the coordinates. Slow going, thin air. Every step burns, lungs screaming, heart hammering, even with acclimatization. But Sonam moved like it was nothing. Like the air was thick as sea level. Steady pace, never winded, never struggling. I asked him about it on day 2. He smiled, said his family always handled altitude well, always had. His father could run at 18,000 feet. His uncle worked at 20,000 without oxygen.
He said it was in his blood. I asked if he'd ever had genetic testing. He said no, but his mother had, before she died. Hospital in Lhasa. They took samples, ran tests, told her everything was normal. But the doctor pulled her aside privately, asked questions. Where was she from? How long had her family lived there? Did she know her ancestry? She told him the village, told him her family had been there for generations, as far back as anyone remembered. The doctor went quiet. Then he said, "Your genetics are remarkable. You should be studied." She refused, went home, never went back to that hospital. 2 months later, men came to the village, government officials, wanted to do a health survey, free medical care, free testing. The village said no. 1 week after that, Sonam's mother disappeared, went to gather water, never returned. They found her bucket by the stream, nothing else. Sonam was 12 years old. He told me this at 19,000 feet. Stars overhead so bright they hurt. Cold cutting through every layer. His voice flat, matter of fact. He said, "They took her because of what she carried, and I carry it too." I asked if he was afraid. He said, "No, I'm ready." We reached the coordinates on March 23rd, 1700 hours. Light fading, temperature dropping fast. -15 degrees Fahrenheit. The cave entrance was exactly where the coordinates indicated. 15 feet wide, 20 feet high. Carved, not natural. The same symbols marked the entrance. Circular patterns, radiating lines. Fresh prayer flags hung from the opening. Someone had been here recently, within days. Sonam stopped 20 feet from the entrance, pulled out his prayer beads, started chanting. Low, rhythmic. I asked what he was doing. He said, "Announcing ourselves, showing respect. If we go in without permission, we die." He chanted for 10 minutes, then stopped. Listened. The wind had stopped, completely. At 23,000 feet, Wind never stops. It's constant, brutal. But now, silence. Sonam nodded, said, "They're listening. We can enter." The air at the entrance smelled wrong. Sweet, organic, like incense but heavier. Made my head swim, made my eyes water. Same smell from the Baishiya reports. I pulled on my oxygen mask. Sonam didn't. Said he wouldn't need it. We entered. The passage descended steeply. Smooth walls, regular dimensions. Our headlamps cut through darkness that felt thick, physical, like pushing through heavy fabric. Temperature rose. 40 degrees, 50 degrees, 60 degrees. 20 feet underground, and it felt like a warm summer day. The passage opened into a chamber, not large, maybe 30 feet across, but the ceiling disappeared into darkness. Our lights couldn't find it. And the walls, covered in symbols. Not carved, painted, or not painted, something else. The symbols glowed, faint bioluminescence, blues and greens, pulsing slowly, like breathing. Sonam touched one, traced the pattern with his finger. His hand left a trail. The glow intensified where he touched it, then faded back. He said, "This is a message, a map." I asked what it showed. He said, "Home." The chamber had 3 tunnel openings, each marked with different symbols. Sonam studied them, pointed to the left tunnel. "This way. This leads to the deep places." I asked how he knew. He said, "I can read it. I don't know how, but I understand." We took the left tunnel. Descended for 20 minutes. The temperature kept rising. 70 degrees, 80 degrees. My oxygen tank felt heavy, unnecessary. The air was thick, rich, easy to breathe. I removed my mask, breathed deeply. The air tasted metallic, copper, but clean, pure. My head cleared. Energy flooded back. The altitude exhaustion vanished. Sonam smiled, said, "Now you feel it. This is their air, modified, enriched."
They've been conditioning these caves for thousands of years. The tunnel opened into a massive cavern. Our lights couldn't measure it, too vast. But we could hear water, dripping, flowing, echoing from far away. And we could hear something else, breathing, deep, slow, multiple sources coming from different directions. Sonam stopped, raised his hand, listened. Then he called out in Tibetan. His voice echoed, carried through the darkness. He was announcing himself, his lineage, his family name, his grandfather's name. The breathing stopped. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Then, movement. In the darkness, beyond our lights. Shapes. Large. Moving toward us. Slow. Deliberate. The sound of bare feet on stone. That wet, clicking sound from the drone footage. Joints articulating. Sonam stood still, arms at his sides, palms open, non-threatening. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed, "Run." But I stayed, camera running, recording everything. The shapes entered our light. 7 feet tall. Broad shoulders, arms reaching past the knees. Skin pale, almost translucent. You could see veins beneath, blue and purple networks pulsing. The face, almost human, but not quite. Brow ridge heavy, pronounced. Jaw strong, square. Eyes large.
adapted for darkness, reflecting our light like a cat's, gold and green. But the eyes weren't animal. They were intelligent, focused, assessing. 3 of them, standing at the edge of our light, watching. They wore simple clothing, woven material, natural fibers, no modern equipment, no technology visible. But they radiated presence, authority, like standing before something ancient, something that remembers when we were children. Sonam spoke, Tibetan, formal, respectful, explained who he was, why he came, mentioned his grandfather. One of them stepped forward, the largest, over 7 feet, scars across the chest, ritualistic, deliberate patterns. It spoke. The voice was deep, resonant, not like a human voice, more like a cello. Like sound vibrating through your chest before reaching your ears. But the language was Tibetan, accented, archaic, but understandable. It said, "You carry the mark. We know your bloodline. Your grandfather walks with us still." Sonam's breath caught. He asked, "He's alive?" The being nodded. Alive. Changed, but alive. He chose to remain, to complete the transition. Many choose this. I asked, "Transition to what?" The being turned to me, those eyes, gold and green, locked on mine. I felt exposed, transparent, like it could see through me, read my thoughts, my fears, my intentions. It said, "Transition to what we always were, what your species forgot. We are not separate. We are the same. You carry us. We carry you. The separation is illusion." Sonam asked, "The gene?" Epis 1. You gave it to us. We did, not as gift, as necessity, as bridge. Your species could not survive here, could not reach us, so we gave you the tools, over millennia, carefully, through contact. Through selection, through patience. I asked, why? Because isolation ends, because the world changes, because the ice melted and the valleys filled and your kind spread. Eventually you would come here. Eventually you would have the technology, the curiosity, the determination. We wanted you prepared. We wanted you to carry our genetics, our adaptations. So when we met again, we would recognize each other, not as alien, not as threat, as family. It gestured deeper into the cavern. Come, others wait. They want to see you. We followed, through passages, through chambers, each larger than the last. And in each chamber, more of them, dozens, maybe hundreds, adults, children, elders with white hair and skin like ancient parchment. They lived here, underground, in caves modified over thousands of years, carved, shaped, made comfortable, warm, sustainable. They had light sources, bioluminescent organisms, cultivated in pools, glowing blue and green, casting soft light. They had water, underground streams, clean, pure, filtered through miles of limestone. They had food, mushroom farms, lichen cultivation, fish in underground pools, pale, eyeless, adapted for darkness. A complete ecosystem, hidden, sustainable, maintained for millennia. The being led us to a central chamber, larger than any before. Hundreds of them gathered, sitting, standing, watching, silent. At the center, an elder, ancient, skin like paper,
eyes clouded but aware, sitting on a carved stone seat, and beside him, an old man, human, Tibetan, thin, weathered, but healthy, alert. Sonam stopped, stared. The old man smiled, said, "Grandson, you grew tall." Sonam's legs buckled. He dropped to his knees, tears streaming. He said, "Grandfather, you're alive." The old man stood, walked forward, moved well for someone over 90. He embraced Sonam, held him. "I've been waiting for you. Knew you'd come eventually. Your blood called you."
Same as mine called me. We spent 3 days in those caves. They fed us, showed us their world, explained their history. The story they told matched what I'd pieced together, but with details, with nuance, with truth. They didn't go extinct, they retreated. When Homo Sapiens spread across Asia, Denisovans moved higher, into mountains, into caves, where we couldn't follow. But they didn't hide out of fear. They retreated strategically. They knew they couldn't compete in the lowlands. Different adaptations, different strengths, different needs. So they made a choice. They would modify Homo sapiens, slowly, carefully, through selective breeding, through genetic contribution, through patient cultivation. They would give us their altitude genes, their cold resistance, their enhanced oxygen efficiency, and wait. Wait for us to spread those genes. Wait for us to adapt. Wait for us to become capable of reaching them. And then, integration. Not conquest, not competition. Reunion. Because we were never truly separate species, just divergent populations. Same root, same origin, different paths that were always meant to converge again. The elder explained it, through Sonam's grandfather translating. "We are the mountain root, you are the valley branch, but we spring from the same tree. For 40,000 years we grew separately, but now, time to rejoin. Time to share what we learned, what we became." I asked about the people who disappeared, the hikers, the villagers. Those who carry sufficient genetic heritage feel the call. They come here, voluntarily. They transition. They join us. They don't return because they don't wish to. They found home. The Songpan villagers, all there, living in deeper chambers, thriving, happy. The 3 with 17% Denisovan DNA were teaching others, training them, helping them adapt. Because the percentage matters. Above 15%, transition becomes possible. Above 20%, transition becomes natural. The body changes, adapts faster, tolerates the altitude, the darkness, the isolation. They're not kidnapping people. They're welcoming family home. But there's more. They want us to know they exist. That's why caves are opening, why seals are being moved, why sightings are increasing. They're ready to emerge, not to invade, not to conquer, to introduce themselves, but slowly, carefully, through prepared channels, through people who carry the genes, who understand, who can bridge the worlds. Sonam's grandfather said it plainly. The world isn't ready for full disclosure. Your governments would panic, your militaries would respond, people would fear. So we do this slowly. We reveal ourselves to those who can understand, who carry our blood, who can speak for us. I asked what they wanted from me. The elder spoke. Sonam's grandfather translated. Tell the story. Show the evidence. Let people know we exist, but do it carefully. Don't reveal locations.
Don't expose us to those who would harm us. Plant seeds. Create curiosity. Let people wonder. Let them search their own genetics. Let them discover they carry us. Those who are ready will come. Those who aren't will dismiss it, and that's acceptable. We've waited 40,000 years. We can wait longer. Before we left, they showed me something. A chamber filled with objects, possessions left by those who transitioned. Clothing, phones, cameras, identification documents. Hundreds of items, from decades, maybe centuries. All carefully preserved, all arranged respectfully. A record of those who joined them, those who made the choice, those who found home. And in one corner, recent additions. The 6 hikers from 2023 and 2024. Their belongings, cleaned, organized, honored. The being who first spoke to us said, "They live, changed, but alive, happy. Would you like to meet them?" I said yes. They brought them out, 6 people, taller now, skin paler. Eyes adapted, but smiling, healthy, thriving. An American climber named David, 34 years old, disappeared June 2023. He shook my hand, said, "I found what I was looking for. Spent my whole life climbing, searching. Didn't know what for. Now I know. This is it." A Chinese researcher named Lin, 28 years old, disappeared September 2023. She said, "I studied high-altitude adaptation for my PhD. Never imagined I'd become the subject. But this is remarkable. Everything we theorized, everything we dreamed, it's real, and I'm living it." They didn't want to leave, didn't want to return, found something here that fulfilled them. Purpose, belonging, connection to something ancient. I asked if I could stay. The elder examined me, had Sonam translate my genetics, my ancestry, my background. He said, "Your percentage is too low, 5%, maybe 6. Not enough for transition, not yet. Maybe your children, maybe your grandchildren, but not you. You would sicken here, you would die." But Sonam. They examined him, tested him. 15%, right at the threshold. They asked if he wanted to stay, to transition, to join his grandfather. He looked at me, looked at his grandfather, looked at the cavern, the people, the light. He said, "Not yet. I have responsibilities, people who depend on me, but I'll return when the time is right." His grandfather nodded, understanding. No pressure, no disappointment. Just acceptance. We left on March 26th. They guided us out. Different route, easier. Through passages that led to lower altitude. Deposited us at 18,000 feet. Still high, but manageable. Before we separated, the being who first spoke gave me something. A small object, wrapped in cloth. He said, "Show this when you tell the story. When people doubt, show this." I asked what it was. He said, "Proof." I unwrapped it. A tooth. Large, human-shaped, but not quite human. The enamel was thicker, denser. The root structure different, and it was old, very old, but not fossilized, still organic. He said, "From a young one, lost naturally, like a child losing baby teeth. We saved it for this purpose, for you." I asked if scientists could test it. He said, "Yes, DNA will confirm what we are, but they'll call it contaminated, hoaxed. They'll dismiss it, until they can't anymore."
until enough people know, until the pattern becomes undeniable. I have that tooth. It's being tested now. 3 independent labs: DNA extraction, carbon dating, isotope analysis. Results should come back in 2 weeks, but I already know what they'll show. So, here's what I believe. Denisovans never went extinct. They're living in the Himalayas, in vast cave systems, in conditions humans can't tolerate, yet. They've been watching us for 40,000 years, guiding us, modifying us, preparing us. Not through force, through genetics, through patient cultivation. 30 million Tibetans carry their genes.
Millions more across Asia, and that number grows every generation. The genes spread, the percentage increases, the threshold approaches. In 100 years, maybe 200, maybe less, there will be enough humans with sufficient Denisovan DNA to bridge the worlds completely. And then, integration, reunion. 2 branches of humanity rejoining, sharing knowledge, sharing adaptations, sharing the planet. Mountain people and valley people, together. That's the plan. That's what they've been working toward. That's why they gave us EPAS-1. Not to help us, to recruit us, to slowly, carefully, patiently turn us into them, or turn them into us, depending on how you look at it. I'm back in Kathmandu now, editing this, preparing to release it, knowing what will happen. Most people will dismiss it, call it fiction, call it fantasy, call it creative writing. Some will be intrigued, will research, will dig, will find the papers I reference, the leaked documents, the genetic studies, the patterns. A few will believe, will check their own genetics, will discover they carry Denisovan DNA, will feel the call. And fewer still will go, will climb, will search, will find the caves. And some of those won't come back, not because they died, because they transitioned, because they found home. Sonam is still with me. He's planning his return. Not now, not yet, but soon. He says he feels it, the pull, the knowing. His grandfather is waiting. Part of me wishes I could join him, wishes my percentage was higher, wishes I could transition, see what they've built, what they've become, what we could become together. But I can't. My genetics won't allow it. I'm too human, not enough Denisovan. So instead, I tell the story. I plant the seed. I show the evidence. And I wait for the world to catch up. The tooth test results came back yesterday. 3 labs, independent analysis, all confirmed the same thing. DNA is consistent with Denisovan genome.
Matches the reference sequence from Denisova Cave, but shows variations. Mutations accumulated over time, recent time. The tooth is less than 30 years old. The labs are confused. They're checking for contamination. They're rerunning tests. They're questioning methodology. But the results don't change. The tooth is real. The DNA is real. The implications are real. Denisovans aren't extinct. They're alive. They're reproducing. They're evolving. In caves we haven't explored. At altitudes we rarely reach. In darkness we've never penetrated. And they're waiting for us. 2 labs have already refused to publish, called the samples anomalous, suggested the data is corrupted, backed away. 1 lab is still investigating. The researcher reached out to me privately, said, "If this is real, If this is genuine, this changes everything. But I need more samples. I need verification. I need to see one alive. I gave him the coordinates. He hasn't responded since. That was 4 days ago. I'm releasing this in 3 parts. This is the final one. Part 3 of 3. The conclusion. By the time you're watching this, the evidence will be uploaded. The tooth DNA results, the leaked documents, the thermal footage, the photographs. Everything I collected. Everything I can share without exposing their locations, without putting them at risk. Some of it will be taken down. Copyright claims, government requests, platform violations, the usual suppression. But it'll spread, get mirrored, get downloaded, get shared. Truth has a way of surviving, especially truth this big. You can choose what to do with this information. Dismiss it, forget it, move on with your life. Or investigate, research, check your own genetics, see if you carry the genes, see if you feel the call. 23andMe, Ancestry.com, any genetic testing service. Request raw data. Look for Denisovan segments. Check chromosomes 2, 7, 11, 17. See your percentage.
If it's above 10%, you'll feel it eventually. The pull, the knowing, the sense that there's somewhere you belong, somewhere higher, somewhere dark and warm and ancient. And if you follow that feeling, if you go searching, if you find the caves, don't be afraid. They're not monsters. They're not aliens. They're not enemies. They're family. Ancient family. Patient family. Waiting for us to remember. Waiting for us to come home. I'm going back. Despite the genetics, despite the risk, despite knowing I can't transition. Because there's more to see, more to document, more to understand. Sonam agreed to guide me again. He's making preparations, gathering supplies, planning routes. We leave in 2 weeks. Going deeper this time, to chambers they didn't show us, to places they keep sacred, to the heart of their world. And this time I'm bringing better cameras, better recording equipment, better proof. If I make it back, there'll be a part 4, part 5, as many as it takes. If I don't make it back, well, then you'll know. You'll know I found something too big, too real, too dangerous to share. But either way, the story is out. The evidence is public. The seeds are planted. And now it's up to you. Before I end this, I want you to do something, right now, before you click away, before you dismiss this, before you forget. Look at your hands, your fingers, your palms. Think about the air you're breathing, how easy it feels, how automatic, how little you think about it. Now imagine living somewhere that air is scarce, where every breath is work, where your body struggles, where most people would die. But you wouldn't, because you carry something ancient, something that remembers when your ancestors lived in mountains, when they survived impossible conditions, when they were more than just human. That's inside you, right now, in your cells, in your DNA, in your blood. And somewhere, high in the mountains, in caves that don't appear on maps, in darkness that never sees the sun, someone is waiting. Someone who shares your genetics. Someone who knows you're out there. Someone patient. Someone ancient. Someone who remembers when you were one people. And they're calling you home. Can you feel it? That pull? That sense of something missing? That knowledge that you belong somewhere else? Somewhere higher? Somewhere you've never been? but somehow remember. That's not imagination. That's not fantasy. That's genetics. That's memory. That's your Denisovan DNA activating, responding, calling back. You have a choice. Everyone does. Ignore it, suppress it, live a normal life. Nothing wrong with that. Or answer it. Investigate, explore, search. See where it leads. Maybe nowhere. Maybe it's all in your head. Maybe this whole video is fiction. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe it's entertainment. Maybe it's nonsense. Or maybe it's real. Maybe every word is true. Maybe Denisovans are alive. Maybe they're waiting. Maybe you're one of the ones they're waiting for. Only one way to find out. Share this video, download it, mirror it, spread it, before it gets taken down, before it disappears, before someone decides it's too dangerous, too revealing, too close to the truth. They'll try to suppress it. They already are. 3 platforms removed earlier versions. Copyright claims, community guidelines, the usual excuses. But you can keep it alive. You can make sure it spreads. You can make sure people know. Not for me, for them, for the ones in the mountains, for the ones waiting, for the truth. Because if 30 million people carry their genetics, if millions more are at the threshold, if the numbers are growing every generation, then this affects everyone. Everyone. This is human history, human evolution, human future. And everyone deserves to know. So share this, talk about it, debate it, investigate it, prove it wrong if you can. Prove it right if you dare. But don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. Don't let it disappear. Because in 40,000 years, someone will ask, when did we learn the truth? When did we discover we weren't alone? When did we find our ancient family? And you'll be able to say, I was there. I heard the story. I spread the word. I helped reveal the truth. Or you'll say, I ignored it. I dismissed it. I let it pass. Your choice. I'm so numb. I'm standing at the cave entrance, the one we documented. Altitude 23,000 feet. It's dawn, light just breaking. Temperature -20. The person who started this story asked me to finish it, to say something, to add my perspective. Here's what I know. My grandfather is alive, living in caves with beings who share our DNA, who gave us the genes that let us survive here, who've been waiting for us to return. And I'm going back, not temporarily, permanently, completing the transition, joining them, joining him, because I feel it. The call, the pull, the knowledge that I belong there, that I've always belonged there, that every step of my life led here, to this choice, to this moment. My human life ends today. My Denisovan life begins. Not death, transformation, evolution. Returning to the root while keeping the branch. If you carry the genes, you'll understand. You'll feel what I feel, and you'll know what to do. If you don't, you'll think I'm insane, throwing my life away, following delusion. But you'd be wrong. I'm not losing myself. I'm finding myself. The self that's been waiting. The self that's always been there. Hidden in my genetics, hidden in my blood. Hidden in 40,000 years of memory. I'm going home. And if you carry 15% or more, eventually you will too. See you in the mountains. See you in the caves. See you in the darkness that glows.
See you where we've always belonged. The coordinates are real. The caves are real. They are real. And they're waiting.